Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Josh now, and today we're going to be looking at, of course, the Stage 2 Finals. This is between NYXL and Philadelphia Fusion, and of course the usual caveats apply. If you haven't watched the series without me rambling over it, then go and watch it. It's worth it, trust me. But honestly, there isn't too much to say that you can't already infer from the game. Now this is of course a best of 5 series and it's gone the entire distance. Everyone thought that Philadelphia Fusion were going to take it after the first 2 games because they looked phenomenally good. They came off a high momentum win against the London Spitfire, had some amazing play out of one of their new, well not new signings, but newly matured, aged, like fine wine players, Snillo, who came in with an extremely strong showing at first, and then suddenly NYXL started to warm up a bit. They started to get into the games a little bit more and started to play a little bit more aggressive, started dealing with Philadelphia a lot better, dealing with the aggression coming out of Philadelphia a lot better, and started diving the backline and playing sort of a more aggro style overall, killing Boombox quite often. And it's going to be a theme that we're going to see continuing here, ladies and gents, because this is going to be dive on dive. Predominantly, this is going to be just 2 teams going at each other full bore, basically. And it's kind of interesting as well at the start of this, because Watchpoint Gibraltar is a very sort of interesting map in sort of Overwatch League, and I'm going to be sad to see it go with Stage 3, as I think it won't be part of the map pool anymore. And the big thing with Watchpoint Gibraltar is this: it is a map that is pretty much dominated, at least 2 of the parts of it are dominated by Widowmaker, and we're going to see Philadelphia Fusion opt not to go for it here. So as per usual, when the gates open, we are going to just pause it, take a quick look at the team comps. It's only going to be a brief one because there's not really too much to say here aside from it's dive on dive. The biggest thing I want you guys to pay attention to is the fact that NYXL are running this Ana. The Ana dictates a huge amount in terms of momentum and how the pro level game will end up working. We want to see both teams actually run these defensive Anas, and it's going to result in some interesting things in terms of how you manage your ultimate economy, how you use these support ultimates and get value out of the back of them, convert them into kills and convert those kills into teamfight wins. Otherwise, there's really not much more to say on the back of this. Philadelphia Fusion playing classic dive, NYXL going to be playing a counter dive. I'm going to see just how it goes. This is going to come down to sort of who can trap who and who can pick who up. There's going to be actually quite a big kill early on. So NYXL going aggressive on Boombox. Boombox just drops back. He's safe. He's got the Mercy taking care of him. And crucially, Meko actually ends up getting focused down. It's a sort of Spitfire-y style, right? That you just blow up the tank, you blow up the first thing you see, and you take it out. Losing Meko is huge because that now means that the supports of NYXL are completely vulnerable. Nothing is going to stop Philadelphia Fusion just going into the back line, putting a ton of damage on the supports and killing them. And while NYXL can try and do the same thing, if Poco even gets remotely near it, he can just put a stop to it pretty much instantaneously. The ability of D.Va to delete a certain amount of damage in a team fight is enormous, and especially when you're trying to think about, how do you protect a Zenyatta, for example, from a Genji Tracer dive. It's always going to come down to that D.Va. And now this puts Philadelphia in a really good spot, right? Because they just took first point super clean. They have all the momentum. They do have to worry about Sabiobi, who I think is sort of lurking behind him. I think that's who they're a little bit concerned about at the moment. And they're keeping an eye on Boombox. It's interesting to see like EQO is playing within touching distance, basically, of both Boombox and the front line. He's just keeping flexible, keeping mobile, waiting maybe for an opportunity to go on Sabiobi, who might be a little bit isolated, scare him off, keep Boombox alive, and keep that payload rolling. They're not going super aggro, they're not trying to hold the doors, for example. They're just sort of letting the fight roll out. Now then, Libero does start getting a couple of kills, a bit of a risky bomb from Carpe, and we're going to see NYXL start committing to this fight pretty much full bore. Jonet goes in with his ultimate, cancels out EQO's Dragon Blade, although he still gets a lot of damage on Libero, helps put him down. It's not going to be enough to deal with a Primal Raging Winston, and NYXL just keeping this team fight going, keeping the momentum sort of ticking over for their team. Now Boombox is going to try and counter with an ultimate of his own. Neptuno's used his as well. The team fight is now rolling into Philadelphia's favour. Sure, they have this Primal Raging Winston, but with the healing coming from Boombox and Neptuno, with that Transcendent sort of tapering out at the end, it's just too much for the NYXL, and they can't actually DPS through it. The Ana not able to sort of overpower certainly 2 support ultimates like the Transcendence and the Valkyrie. Nano Boost is a very, very interesting ultimate and sort of how it works. But spawn distances and spawn ratios, something that we've commented on in the past, are now in favour of NYXL. It's sort of the tip of the doorway here, and as a result, this Dragon Blade is going to be absolutely huge because he can come out of spawn, get right back into the fight. He knows that Philadelphia Fusion don't have anything left in the tank, collect some damage, collect some kills, and now his team just have to stay alive while the spawn ratio kicks in and means that his team can reinforce on the point, get back there safely, and start collecting a couple of kills. Now then, if you are Philadelphia Fusion or you're a fan of Philadelphia Fusion, you shouldn't feel too bad at this point, right? Because you got like 3 minutes 40 on the clock, you got to push the payload, you know, it's going to roll back a bit, but like 5-10 meters, really, realistically, it's not a big problem, right? You can just build up 2 of these support ultimates and actually get that rolling. The big issue, however, is that second point on Gibraltar is a tough cookie to actually just get into. If the enemy team controls the space properly, this is what's going to happen over and over again. You've seen Boombox go down, you even seen Neptuno popping that Valkyrie. I'm not sure why. I'm really not sure why. Maybe he thought that, you know, if his team could cover him, he could res Boombox and they can keep something going, and then Fraggy goes down. They go for this anyway, and they're lacking their Zenyatta, and as a result, Sabielby just waits on this back line, just goes in for Boombox. Now both supports have to be pulled back. There's no healing on the front line, and sure, Fraggy's getting some work done, but Ark's actually dropped off the nano boost on his way out, and now just put it on Libero. Libero's now out DPSing everything, killing the tanks off, no problem, and as a result, NYXL turned this into a win. Libero, Jonak rather, just putting orbs in, like, logical places. Like, this is something that if you are a Zenyatta player, like I play a lot of Zen myself, like, model yourself on what Jonak is doing somewhat. Look at where he's putting the orbs. It's not really even aim, it's just prediction. It's sort of knowing where people move through, putting the orbs there, and that's going to give him some kills. Those kills then give him, well, lots of ult charge for one, and it gives his team lots of momentum for the second. So Ark had to use that nano boost, so now he has swapped onto the Mercy. There is an opening now for Philadelphia Fusion. Neptuno has actually done a really good job of building up a huge amount of ultimate charge, and so they are coming up to a point where they're going to have 2 support ultimates, the enemy's going to have 0. Any advantage that Philadelphia Fusion can force in this next push here is going to be huge, but honestly, losing this fight, not the biggest deal in the world. This is just sort of prepping, getting themselves ready for the next fight when they can go in with basically 6 ultimates. Enemy team won't be able to kind of match that, and they can convert that into a win. Still with maybe a little bit of leeway as well, with a little bit of time to play with in their back pocket. The key here, of course, is getting in, and like that's very difficult when you have someone like Jonak just, again, suppressing like crazy. Again, Boombox goes down. Luckily, this is in a position where the res could come through if they want to go for it, so they can at least try and get that done. If Neptuno has it off cooldown, there it is, picks him up, and now they can get this fight going. Engaging with the Valkyrie, which is completely sensible. Unfortunately, this has taken them so long that Ark has actually managed to build up a Valkyrie of his own, and as a result, NYXL wait for Neptuno's ultimate to run through, activate their own, and then they're going to start playing a little bit more aggressive. Philadelphia Fusion peeling back, notice that they're being passive, they're waiting, and now it's just come down to, okay, now it's just Zen ults and Genji ults. That's all this is coming down to, and it's really going to come down to who blinks first. At least, like, on paper, this is how this team fight should play out. Who is going to force which Transcendence first? Is Jonak going to activate it? Is Boombox going to activate it? How are they going to do this? How are they going to set up their Genjis to get these pivotal Dragon Blades that are going to turn everything? This is still all running down the clock, by the way, for NYXL as well, which they are relatively happy with this passive playstyle at the moment. They just have to be careful that, you know, they don't get super dived on and get killed by something silly, just poking them out like that. Sabielby could have very easily turned a huge amount there. Now then, NYXL do get forced to use their Transcendence. They're going to play more aggressive, Philly just peel back a little bit, wait by the time, and get that Transcendence. Sure, Kyo goes down, but because the trance is up, Neptuno can get the res, and now the fight is reset again, and it's like, this is a crazy long fight, right? It's very patient, it's very methodical, and all they're doing is trying to set up these Dragon Blades. Libero goes for it first, but Neptuno gets a really good dodge out of the way. Does end up going down on the back line, but Libero's Dragon Blade not hugely effective. And now EQO, well, clutch your kick time, ladies and gentlemen. Like, this is where the DPS, and this is, like, in my mind, this is why DPS players deserves, you know, the accolades that they get, because at that moment EKO has to come up big. He has to get results. He has to get these kills. So getting those 2 supports is enough to keep his team on the point. It means that NYXL have to play very passively on the point at the moment. They can't convert this into damage despite having that spawn advantage. They have to be very careful with what they're doing and how they're doing it. And now Boombox has actually done a clever thing. He's swapped to Moira with that faster rollout, can get to the point quickly, provide a huge amount of healing. They have Valkyrie on the point as well that can keep them alive. They can even get a cheeky res off using Poco's bomb to cover it. Very nicely done by Neptuno, and getting Carpe back in the fight is huge because that's a lot of extra damage. Means that, you know, if you get that res off, the spawn distances matter less, and Boombox has built a Transcendence in 40 seconds, ladies and gentlemen. He's going to just use that Coalescence, helps finish off targets, no problem. It's providing the job that the Genji can't do because he's dead, right? So it just provides that sort of cleanup crew, and means that they can keep this alive, they can keep this rolling, they can finish off the fight, and they can actually stay alive in this game. Now then, it's rough. It's still a rough position. They don't have anything left in the tank, basically. They don't have anything left in the tank, basically. They had to use all of their support ults just to get through that second point, right? Boombox is now on 0%, or at least was on 0% because he's had to swap. Neptuno has to use his ultimate in that final fight. NYXL, on the other hand, have tons of resources. They're feeling pretty good. This bomb that gets thrown into the Mediterranean, kind of a big whiff, right? They needed some kind of advantage because Libero is just going to go into the backline, draws the Dragon Blade, scoops himself up a juicy double kill. Meanwhile, Fraggy uses his Primal Rage on the backline. I think, yeah, he collects Arc on the backline, but it's like one side's got a Dragon Blade, one side's got a Primal Rage. Which one's scarier? You know, it's the Dragon Blade. The Dragon Blade's the one making the difference. Fraggy should have maybe used that one to try and deflect EQO, not EQO, should have used that one to deflect Libero, should have maybe even kept a hold of it for this final fight that they know is coming up at this point. Interesting to note, by the way, that no Widowmakers have come out on this point, but still, Dive goes in on the backline, Arc uses Valkyrie because he has that advantage. They stick Boombox, Boombox goes down, Neptuno's being pressured, so there's no res to come through, they can't protect him enough. Both supports now dead, and it's just a simple matter for NYXL to just get the cleanup done. They can even get a cheeky res on Sabielby to round out the fight. Poco can't reach the point anymore, Payload is rolling back even, and yeah, NYXL finish up the map, and they finish it up crucially before that first corner. And that is actually going to play a huge role in the fights to come. Now then, a little bit of context for you guys. Going into this game, Libero has actually been winning the sniper duels. Carpe's been playing a very, very capable Widowmaker, but Libero has been winning a lot of the sniper 1v1s. And I think this might have got to Carpe's head a little bit, because NYXL are going to play a Widowmaker comp. Now, this is not unusual on Gibraltar at all, but what this means is that Philadelphia have to change how they play. And once that Widowmaker pops up, they have to be super careful. Their positioning has to be passive. If any of them peek out at the wrong moment, they could just die. And a death here will mean that they could probably just lose the fight straight away. So the Widowmaker changes how the team has to play, how they have to position, and how they're going to do anything. You notice that when, at the first half, Philadelphia Fusion and NYXL were sort of fighting against each other already, but the Widowmakers forced the Fusion back into this server room more than anything, and Philadelphia are going to have to pick their moment to fight, go for a more aggressive dive when they do begin the fight, and then maybe get 1 or 2 kills, try and blow people up before the Widowmaker can hit anyone or kill anyone, and go from that. They also need to keep pressure on Libero in these moments when these fights are happening, because if they don't, again, that could have been a dead Genji, for example. They have to be so careful with what they're doing. You notice that they're actually doing it. Philadelphia are executing this pretty well. They're playing around the server room, keeping themselves alive for quite some time. Fraggy does eventually go down, so kind of rough, but unfortunately for NYXL, their supports and backline also start going down. I think Jonet gets picked off in a silly location as well, if I recall correctly. And sure, the Nano Boost gets used. EQO doesn't need to use his Dragon Blade, but Neptuno just puts it on him anyway, helps him clean up the fight. It's not a big deal. But the big issue here is that Ana pick in general, and this is why I highlighted it at the start, because NYXL now have 2 support ultimates. They know that the enemy is sort of forced back on the back foot in that server room location, and they just run in there with 2 support ultimates, because why not? They can use the Valkyrie to keep themselves alive during this, they can survive through the Transcendence, and then they can just use their own Transcendence, confirm first point, and just take it without too many issues. And this is sort of the big weakness of playing that Ana comp, and in my mind, this is where I sort of struggle with Pro Overwatch, because it's like, the Ana comps are there, they're played primarily here on Gibraltar, they're played on Hanamura, but the big thing that I see quite often is they use these nano boosts and the enemy team just goes, okay, they use the nano boost at times when they can't force enemy support ults, basically. They use the nano boost and the enemy just goes, oh, okay, and they just sort of either retreat or they just lose the fight and then come in the next fight and they have 2 support ultimates of their own to get something done. And sure, you might say, oh, well, the Ana can get a grenade in and maybe shut down a huge amount and maybe shut down all the healing. It very rarely actually works out like that. Like, the divas are good enough to catch those grenades. They're looking for them, and they're trying to shut things down. Philadelphia Fusion, by the way, do a great job here of shutting down the hangar phase. They just sort of go in aggressive. They sort of peel back. They know sort of how the spawns work on phase 2. So they make sure that they're all alive, reposition themselves around the hangar, and then go in for an aggressive dive. Especially with that Widowmaker, she's going to be a little bit less effective here. So they, NYXL wisely also swap off it straight away, but they know that they can sort of pressure this out. And again, we see this Dragon Blade go in, but NYXL, they can just let this one go, right? They have 3 minutes 30. They can just sort of let it die. It's no big loss. Philadelphia Fusion used 2 ultimates there, and NYXL's economy didn't change at all. And that's actually a really big deal when you have this much time left, because it means that NYXL, well, they're going to have 2 ultimates come online pretty much at the same time, which is Jonex and Arcs, and Philadelphia Fusion are just going to have Boombox. Which means that NYXL can pretty much just win the fight. Like, they can weather the storm through pretty much anything, and then just go ahead and win a fight. As long as that Mercy survives, you can get a res off at a crucial time as well. Use Degenerate to cover it. There's a huge amount of value with that Mercy Zen combo. So it's like a really, really awkward position I find with these Annas and these Dragon Blades, especially these Nano Blades, when you don't get an economical advantage, right? That's a huge concept here in Pro Overwatch, and I think that that's a huge factor here, especially in like the hangar phase when one team is running this Anna and the other team isn't, is to just keep a level head and sort of understand that you are building up advantage, and especially by doing this, forcing out the trance here, you know, does NYXL respond with a Valkyrie of their own? The job here is to just survive. Philadelphia do a very good job, by the way, here. They just back away and they just give space. Like, this is honestly the best way that they could play this out at this point, which is just to give NYXL space. They've used 2 support ultimates, and all they really got is a bit of payload progress, and that actually isn't as good as you would expect. It's not the greatest in the world. This is a thing of beauty, which is this is just really well played by both Neptuno and Boombox. This requires a lot of trust to get working, which is that Boombox gets nanoed, the sleep goes on the Winston, that sets Boombox up for a juicy right click onto the Winston and kills him. Unfortunately, Libero has something to say about that. This is very risky, but I think it works because Meko follows him in, and that gives him some cover. You've got to be very careful if you're a Genji player of using these Dragon Blades in small rooms. The amount of times you see Genjis like go into a small space, like that small back room, and draw the Dragon Blade and then just kind of instantaneously die, it's pretty common, right? But Mecha was there, follows him in, might have given him a bit of defense matrix, might have just helped him stay alive during all of that. It could have just been Libero avoiding shots like a baller as well. Who knows? You know, without sort of free cam, it's kind of hard to see. But I do think that that sort of thing facilitates a lot of good play out of NYXL. The fact that Libero knows that he's going to be covered for this. Now then, the Widowmakers have come out, and as I mentioned earlier, Libero has definitely been getting the better of it. But the crucial thing here is where that payload finished. It didn't actually make it around the corner, and that means that the common spot where Carpe wants to be, sort of on top of that bridge towards the spawn, doesn't actually cover where Libero can stand and cover that victory position. It means that Philadelphia Fusion are basically, they're playing around, 0.65 meters of space. They don't actually have the room to breathe. So CBLB, patient, looking for a bomb opportunity just to sort of win it for his team, doesn't quite find it, unfortunately, but NYXL still have this economy advantage at the moment, and crucially, Libero can just sit at the back. He's completely safe in that location he's in. The enemy Widow can't actually get to him without pretty much running out onto the point. So this is actually a huge advantage, because as long as NYXL can just keep surviving on the point and just keep putting out Winston damage onto the point, people can't cover behind it. And you notice that Carpe kind of has to jump on the point at this point, because literally they can just wait it out. Libero can just shoot people and give NYXL the win. And as a series, like, this was a really good series, but this was also just really nicely done by NYXL. It felt like they really kind of figured out Philadelphia Fusion while playing for them. That's kind of interesting, because NYXL didn't actually practice for Fusion. They didn't think that Fusion would beat Spitfire. They practiced for Spitfire. But NYXL still come out with a win, even against Fusion's unique playstyle, even against Fusion's sort of very aggro style. NYXL demonstrate that they can kind of do the same thing and kind of do it better as well. Alright guys, thank you so much for joining me. Let me know if you guys are excited for Stage 3 as well. Who do you think is going to take it in Stage 3? I think we might be seeing NYXL again in the finals at the very least. I kind of hope that Spitfire do it again, because, I'm a fan of Spitfire. Leave me alone. I like them. They're a good team. But honestly, I'm super impressed as well with how well the Fusion have done, and I hope to see them at the very least finish high in Stage 3. I really want to see them make it to those final playoffs at the end of it all in Season 1. Alright guys, thank you so much for watching to the end. I've been Josh's one voice amongst many here for the Unit Lost channel, and I'll see you guys next time. Toodles.